Tonight, I thought I would reflect a bit on this path of a bodhisattva, these six perfections. It's something that we've been unpacking for a bit, but how do they apply in our lives, specifically in times that are challenging, difficult? People's minds are troubled, and the retreat I just came out of, a lot of people had some anxiety around, the Middle East, and the rockets had been launched, and the killings, and the escalation of things. And so I thought, well, why not tie these six perfections into how do we utilize them practically in our life in difficult times? And that's where I think the journey here is all about, is how do we use these tools and teachings in ways that have a direct impact, not just on my future, but my present. And I really think that's what this path of a bodhisattva makes us better human beings and improves the communities we live in, the worlds we live in. And so tonight the title was Cultivating the Sixth Perfection for Difficult Times. And I thought I would start with concentration, because that's where we can lose it, right off the bat. I get triggered, something happens, I get this news, oh, I'm scared, I'm, angry, these things arise. But if I can really have a foundation of noting how I apply my attention to what I'm hearing, what I'm reading, even noting how I subject myself to information or events or activities that may not be very healthy for me. And so this idea of having a balanced mind, concentration, training the mind, we just did a short meditation, and it had one focus: concentration, how to train my mind so I can attend to what I choose to. And if we imbue that with now wisdom, maybe some patience, now I'll have some opportunity to participate in how I am experiencing my world, how I'm experiencing you, and how I'm experiencing even the feelings that are coming up. And so it's this great gatekeeper, concentration, attention, where I actually can note what I'm attending to, why I'm attending to it. And then the big question, is it based in reality? Is it healthy? What's going on here? Because so often we hear something, we read something, someone shares something with us, and we have an emotion, we have a feeling, we have a whatever it is, whether it's I heard about Jerry at work, or I heard about this, wow, it has an impact. We're human creatures. And but then the mind, should be somewhat discerning, noting, I have some role in how I'm experiencing this, and I also have a duty to participate with others in a healthy, meaningful way, because I'm a participant in this community as well, and I affect you and you affect me. And so where I'm leading to is this very simple thing, that a lot of what we react to is not based in reality. And some of it is, but it's always a dependent arising, right? This interdependent arising, causes and conditions. And so, the news is a big thing, and we hear news, and it's responsible to know what the news is. But if I don't listen to it in a way that is responsible and discerning, I can find myself caught up in a wave of despair, frustration, anger, sadness, based on something that's not even true to begin with, or based on something is got an experience. So, and then I can also lose a bigger perception of the world as it is. So one of the things that, you know, very few people realize, you know, we have there's difficult times right now. There's escalating tension. There's no doubt about that. But we're also in the most peaceful time in the history of our world since 1948. Since 1948 to current, the bell curve is down and here, and decade after decade, there's been less deaths caused due to war and violence each decade. So it doesn't feel like that, does it? So here's something where my feelings and perception are not really based in how things are. Since 1948, we've experienced the greatest time of peace in history. And, but that's not how it feels. That's why the discernment is, okay, well, what am I attending to? And now can I bring some wisdom into that and be discerning about the experience? So that's kind of a nice sign to think that since World War II, basically, wow, a lot less are dying. I mean, significant. It's just, just massively, there's no comparison. Deaths from natural disasters in the last 100 years is halved, cut in half. Well, we hear about natural disasters, we have war. The population living in extreme poverty over the last 20 years, cut in half. That's just the last 20 years, based on printing that book, which is a couple of years old. So when I get triggered by something and I get a perception of something, I always need to remember, well, there's always more to the story to what I'm experiencing. Everything I'm experiencing is dependently arising, depending on what I'm attending to, depending on what I'm aware of, can bring into my awareness, and dependent upon the information I'm getting. Going to have a very different worldview when I read that extreme poverty is getting cut in half, natural disasters and people and so few people dying comparatively. And just the other thing that I point to in an interesting way for me is the amount of tolerance that there is in the world, even though we're having escalated rhetoric. It wasn't that long ago in this country you couldn't marry someone outside your own race. We had a black president raised by a single white mom, and that was not the United States not that long ago in my own lifetime. So what we pay attention to can be so obscured and we can't often see with more clarity the much more layered experience that we're all having, and which also goes to me, right? John, because John's like this. And so understanding that how I attend to me, how I attend to you, how I attend to our community is always relational, and it's always subjective. And if I'm not able to have the wisdom, that's our sixth perfection, the wisdom to understand this interdependence and how I experience things, I'm just going to be hooked, So-and-so told me this is what's happening. Oh my God. And I won't have the ability to understand that what is being told to me, should be scrutinized, should be something that is honored in the way that is asking the greatest question, which is, what can we do? What's helpful? And in what way is this experience I'm having today an opportunity to cultivate my heart, my mind, improve the world that we're living in, myself included? So concentration wisdom, I think, is where we start, is the ability to have some attention and to be able to direct it in ways that um, that we can more skillfully notice how we attend to the experience we're having. Which brings to mind then, okay, there's some terrible things happening, and that's not in doubt. Good news, a lot fewer people, a lot smaller percentage, a lot less, violence and genocide across the board. Bad news, we've got more powerful weapons. Right? Bad news. And so there are these things that are happening. So the question then interacts, how do I engage in this world in a way that's meaningful and I can feel pretty good about and is productive? And I'm going to suggest that anger is probably not the option. and I don't say that just so half-heartedly. It's funny, we're here and I would say, well, anger, getting angry. There's quite a few humans on this planet that really think anger is the answer. And I'm not just talking about angry people. I'm talking about thoughtful people. I was at a retreat and interfaith, and one of the person who is thoughtful, a person who gives spiritual direction, a person who has read, these great treatises. When I'm introducing the idea of removing the causes of your anger, that does not compute. He was wary of the idea that, I'm so sure about that, removing the seeds of your anger. What are you meddling with that for? You need your anger. And it's like, wow, I was a bit taken aback. And so it's not just common in a sense of we can say, well, could I solve more problems out of compassion than with anger? Could I have more options in how to solve a problem out of compassion than anger? An analogy, of course, brought up is, somebody, harming someone out of anger, step in, and it's natural behavior. But could I see someone harming someone and out of compassion step in and stop that? And would I have more ability to do it more skillfully out of compassion? Anger narrows your focus. That's what physiologically, just narrow. That's what it does. And compassion, we have much more resource available to. We can see a bigger picture and more flexibility in how we respond. So if we start, looking at some basic principles, well, there's some challenging times. But when we say that, are we in challenging times? Or are we in some ways the best times it's ever been on the planet? Is there more acceptance and kindness in the world? Is it, we're here in the Dharma Center in Carbondale, Colorado. We have all these individuals online. We have people here, and I would say that there's a movement around tolerance, around acceptance, around people's gender, and around their race that we just hadn't seen. And so even this idea in challenging times. Are these times also filled with potential and kindness and compassion? I think there is. I think there's an incredible amount. In other words, are we never, samsara is a challenging time. And if we can remember that I am in a limited conditional space of samsara, and that how I'm experiencing and engaging with the world is a subjective relative experience based on my upbringing, my karma, the experiences I've had, what I'm attending to, and so forth. There's no objective world out there that is a particular way that everybody's experiencing. And so that's going to be hard to get to in our minds because everything appears very deceptively and in a way that looks very solid and real, and that's the way it is. And of course, Mike would see it the way I see it, except when he doesn't, which then I don't understand what he's looking at. And um, we can get lost in that and seeing this objective, quantifiable world out there. So I think compassion, concentration, wisdom are this entry point of the structure, and that's why they, in the Noble Eightfold Path, really start with that right view. So I can understand the nature of things. And then given an understanding of the nature of things, I can start to compare my experience of it with how it interacts. And then I can start to understand, well, if I shift my attention and attend to the same experience a little differently, with a little broader perspective, how might then I choose to act? And how would that affect my emotions? So understanding that, then we can look at, well, this path of a bodhisattva has one interest: to remove suffering. Wow, that's the whole point, from myself and others. In other words, my opportunity here in this human body has one purpose: to remove suffering. So that's a pretty big task. But what more skillful action or thought could we have than in any given event that I engage in? Then how can I do this with the least amount of suffering that has the most benefit? And in which case, then I have a nice focus to attend to this day that will never come again. So as we cultivate these six perfections, it's really starting understanding things, and then the ability to attend to and bear in mind the opportunity I have every day. Every day we have opportunities to remove suffering. So then when I act out of anger, or I act out of despair, or I, Facebook shared this horrific, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that, is that eliminating suffering? Or is it encouraging suffering? And did I even check it? Did I check something that I shared? In the perfection of ethics, honesty, truthfulness, critical stuff. And the question is, am I sharing something that's true? So sometimes we'll share a lot of things out of gossip, or out of a Facebook post, or something that we get. And it might even be a joke. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Why am I posting that? Why am I passing this on? And if I understand this experience, then when someone does pass on some stuff that's angry, hateful, do I meet that with anger and hatefulness, or do I now have an opportunity to meet that with compassion and wisdom? Because how do we really change the world? And I don't think it's by yelling at people. And just, I haven't seen that argument end well. You yell, I yell, and then I'm not listening to you, and you're not listening to me. But I might listen to you a little bit so I can counter a point, right? And then once I got my counterpoint, Well, okay, now I'm done listening, waiting for my shot. And somewhere in all that, what we miss is the wisdom of understanding the interdependent nature of our experience. That you might also have been the person that, we have these people, we stick labels on them. They're this political party, they belong to this group, they're like that, and these people are like that. And boy, I don't know how I could ever be friends with someone with that political until they tow your car. Or I just had some friends break down in an RV. They're traveling the country, and they're out somewhere pretty remote, and people came and got them, took care of them. Couldn't get to the other place; it'd be like miles out. Put them up in their house. Just took great care of them. Totally different political party, totally different way of life. Fed them, nurtured them, got their RV to the right place for the next day, and they spent a few days out there. And therein lies, humanity, because when we look at each other, we're not the labels that we see. We can be the humans that we're experiencing as hopes and desires and worries and fears, and we all carry a bit of baggage with us. And based on my experience and how I was raised and the culture I was brought up in, for some reason I chose this political path or this one or that thing. And it makes sense to me. And somebody else's makes sense to them. And so if we want a place that's peaceful and tolerant, it's not going to happen if we're not peaceful and tolerant. So this wisdom of these six perfections, this incredible opportunity to be an example, skillful, have boundaries, but also be very discerning. So we're starting with this idea of concentration, wisdom, and I'm jumping right now to ethical behavior. As ethical behavior is the foundation of all society, all community, all spiritual growth. And so then, is it not, when we talk about the top 10 list of unwholesome behavior, how much is speech playing a role in our discourse right now around how we interact with each other, how we label each other? And what is it we're sharing? What is it sharing? There's meaningful speech that we can give that has different opinions. I have a friend, I don't know, he might be on here, but he had a session. It was interesting. There was some quote that he had, and I'm thinking around people with opinions are the cause of our annoyance, something like that. And it was the idea that people having opinions is the problem. They're going around annoying everybody. And, I thought about, well, everybody has opinions. Their opinions aren't the problem. How do we share them? How do we listen to others? How do we honor somebody's opinion? Opinions aren't the problem. I've got some. Pretty sure all of you do. And but can we bring some wisdom to understand that how I perceive and believe anything in this world today is always subjective and is always based on some limited experience I have. And I do not know all things. And if we were to ultimately want to live in a place that's peaceful, that's nurturing, that's safe, that our kids can grow up in, what's the skillful means? And the skillful means is going to be a way that we can honor, the value of others as we engage with them. Which doesn't mean we're doormats, and it doesn't mean we don't go stand on a corner and protest. It means when we're standing on a corner and protest, we're not yelling obscenities, hopefully. That we're being an example of that which we find is meaningful and important. send letters and we make phone calls to our elected officials. We do these things, but we can do so in the way of a bodhisattva. To do so in the way of a bodhisattva, and and a bodhisattva is going to listen to and attend to other human beings. I've never seen the Dalai Lama. Oh, you're that kind of party? We're not talking. So I probably pull your beard and attend to you. And so that's the question: is how do we we spent all these weeks talking about these 6 perfections. Well, how do they come into play? Am I generous with my attention? Am I generous? How I attend to people? Am I ethical in my behavior? Am I responsible before I send something? Am I responsible before I say something? What am I contributing to all this when I'm pointing all those fingers out there? And can I, within ethics of not harming, not stealing, no sexual misconduct, our speech that's truthful, not divisive speech. And that's a tricky one because there's still a responsibility to have clear, honest speech and let people know about danger and let people voice a belief about how we should do things. Can we do that in a way that can honor the views of other people as well, but still do it because it's important? Gossip, and how often those things get spread. Covetousness, ill will, and finally, wrong view. Just not understanding that things are cause and effect. And so, what's the cause of a peaceful, safe environment? Well, a lot of it has to do with people getting their needs met. Right? When people have their needs met, they're rarely stirring up trouble. And I'm talking about mental, emotional, as well as physical needs. And people, when they have their needs met and they have some hope and they have the ability to have a life that they feel safe in, they're not out causing trouble generally. So generosity. How do we attend to the needs of the people in front of us, of our communities, of people in this global experience we're having? So with generosity, with ethics, and then I think key to all of this, how am I doing for time, is patience. Wow. What would it be like if I applied patience just to the news, let's say? Since our news went to a 24-hour news cycle, there's no such thing as patience. Something's going to happen in 5 days, whether it's an impeachment hearing or this or that. For 5 days, they're going to talk about, well, this might happen and that might happen and this might happen. And people are watching it. It's going, well, if this happens. And then it comes and probably, often none of those things happen, but we spent 5 days talking about the potentials. And then something does happen. And, we've been worked up for it. And then the next day, like, I don't want to hear what I listened to 2 days ago about what might have happened, because now I already know it happened. And then my mind's on, well, and now the next thing. And what happens is people get caught up in this cycle about talking about things that may or may not ever happen by a bunch of people with a variety of opinions. And then something does happen, and then that's last Tuesday, and I'm not even interested in. Nobody wants to go back and watch CNN from 5 days ago, or whatever, because I want to talk about what might happen. what if I were to be more disciplined and go, okay, this is going to happen. Let me know what's relevant and is there something I can do prior to that, and then see what the outcome is, and then how do I respond to that. But our space gets filled. Our space gets filled with all these commentaries on the nature of what may or may not happen, instead of some clear advice grounded in here's what's happening and here's some things that you should attend to, which gets lost so often. So I think patience in the news. For me, I've got a personal device of just scanning headlines more. It's amazing what you can pick up just hitting the headlines without going, okay, this, okay, well, they're not, that's going to be a week from now, that's going to be this. Just kind of scanning so I don't get too, but it's important for us to know what's going on and to be an active participant in our culture, in our government. But we want to do it responsibly, and I think we need some patience to understand when what are facts, and let them let things come to mind and see how things are. So this path of a bodhisattva, I think, is not this path limited to awakening, but a path to how we improve the world we live in right now. It's the way we can attend to others and see their value. It's a way that we can use the generosity of our time and resources to help the needs of others that eliminates so much of the difficulty. The ability to bring our ethics into my part in this world, instead of talking about your part. What's my part? What am I doing? To have some patience with others, some patience with my own limited understanding, some patience to allow things to happen before I get too worked up over them. The joyous effort's the one piece we haven't talked about yet, which is the skill set of maintaining healthy mental states and noting when they go down and applying that antidote. Because that's the thing, we can get triggered and caught up in, and when we're reposting or we're, in despair, and then I'm telling how terrible it is, I'm calling my friends, and then we're talking about it. Whereas the joyous efforts is opportunity of maintaining the effort to stay healthy and balanced, to note my mental states, and to notice when they drift, and to put that effort to bring it up, and to maintain my practice. I mean, this is that opportunity to an application I just had earlier, a little while ago. I went home for a snack, and I was thinking about the news. I listened to some news, and I thought, I'm going to give a Dharma teaching night. So I listened to Jetsun Tenzin Palmo instead, right? So watching my mind, I can go there, but this I think is going to be healthy. The news will still be there. I can check those later. And to have that option of noting my mind getting curious, and then my mind having an opportunity to go, okay, in this moment, what's healthier, for me? And of course, I listen to her and I start thinking in a whole different mind, because now I have new input and it's a totally different trajectory. And so joyous effort has this idea about what is the information I'm putting in my mind? What are the thoughts I'm putting in my mind? What am I allowing in? What am I choosing to listen to? Or am I not even choosing anymore and I'm just clicking? So joyous effort is that nice dial of giving us some choice about giving our mind a healthier diet that we can engage with. And then, of course, concentration and wisdom, where we started. So they're all interdependent, right? I need to have the effort, to have the concentration, the wisdom, which kind of understands how these things work, and putting into action my ethics and generosity while I cultivate this thing called patience. But underlying it all, without the wisdom to understand the interdependentness of our experience, uh, can get really easy to get caught in me and mine and the way I want to be, in a narrow focus, and something totally out of perspective with history, with the actual history that has been documented in the way that things are. And bottom line is, what can I do right now to impact the world in a healthier way? And is it maybe uh, being an example of the love and kindness I'd like to see, and being a little more accepting of people with other labels that I don't particularly care for in this given moment. So I might break down with an RV outside their house. And I'll tell you what, my water, my food, my clothing, my kids' education, everything is dependent on all of these people of all different labels and shapes and sizes and provided. I think I'll wrap on just a little skillful thing that my daughter shared with me. She was in college, and she was in in her major in her class, and it was big lecture, and the professor was very opinionated and of a very particular viewpoint, which was the antithesis of hers, and you know, politically, socially, and so forth, and my daughter loved it because she thought, he's going to make me really think about my positions. And so she would write papers to just poke. And if he brought up your name to kind of shame you, it was like a victory. So he'd pull out her paper, and so thinks this. And she would just be, yeah, like, got his attention, got his thing. And she's doing this on her own. She didn't ask my advice on it. And she has said, it's one of the most powerful classes I've had in my life, because it really made me think through my positions and my understanding. And sometimes he made valid points that I wasn't even thinking about. And she could see his view in certain ways. And I think, wow, wouldn't the world be interesting if that's the way we engaged with differing views? And it made me clarify mine, or listen to yours in a different way. And I just thought, what wisdom. What wisdom. So already, this goes quick with our new thing. So just check anyone online if you had any question or anything, since we didn't have much of a chance. There's a lot of you as well. Feel free to either raise your hand or pop up a question or answer while we have a couple minutes. And of course, anyone here. But we'll be talking afterwards. Okay. I don't think I'm seeing anyone. I don't even see everyone. There's so many people. Let me scroll down. Okay. Everybody's good. Nobody's posting a pop-up or chat. Okay. All right. Well, then, before we do our dedication, just a couple announcements. We, if you don't know, almost every morning we do morning meditation together. So any of you that would like to join online, we do it's a half-hour practice where we take refuge, do the 4 thoughts, and then meditate for 20 minutes and do a dedication. So that's broadcast. You can join just at the Way of Compassion Dharma website. And that's on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Thursday, and Friday, just not Tuesday. And so if you'd ever like to join us at 6 a.m. Mountain Time, come in and meditate with us. And we do now have the opportunity to sign up for the retreat at Juanita Hot Springs Ranch. So if you'd like to do that. Do you have any other announcements besides those two? Okay, easy peasy. And we do now have some prayer books that we'll get out to people, little daily practice books. So we'll get that posted online soon. So let's go ahead and dedicate and this time that we've had here together. Let us dedicate the merit and the wisdom that we have accumulated both here today and throughout our lifetimes, both individually and collectively. Let's dedicate this for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be free of suffering, recognize this precious gift of the opportunity that we all share together. May we all use the merit and wisdom accumulated throughout our lifetimes and our times here together to purify our own minds, to help us cultivate these 6 perfections in ways that allow us to be more skillful as we engage in our daily interactions, as we cultivate our own path of awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. And let us also dedicate the merit and wisdom accumulated here today and throughout our lifetimes for the long life of all the spiritual mentors, of all spiritual traditions that are authentically teaching a path of awakening. May they live long, may their teachings flourish.